I was born in a small village called Obodo, nestled along the banks of a great river, where the waters shimmered like silver under the moonlight. Our village was a place where the old ways were still honored, where the earth was treated as a sacred mother, and the river was said to hold the spirits of our ancestors. We had our traditions, our dances, our songs. Life was simple, but deeply connected to the land. Now, let me tell you about Adama. I remember her well. She was unlike anyone I had ever met. Her skin was the color of deep brown earth, her hair was long and black like the night, and her eyes, oh, her eyes, they sparkled like the stars in the night sky. She was beautiful in a way that made heads turn. But despite her beauty, there was always something about her that unsettled the villagers. We were drawn to her, but we also feared her. I would often hear whispers behind her back as I passed by the elders and the children. She was born of the river goddess, they would say. She's not one of us. She carries a terrible curse. Those whispers would fade as quickly as they started when Adama came close, but it was always there, hanging in the air like a shadow that no one dared to confront. But Adama, she didn't understand it. She had done nothing wrong. She lived a quiet life in her small hut at the edge of the village. She had a warm heart and was kind to everyone, but still, the villagers would cross the road to avoid walking too close to her, and when there was a gathering, she was never invited. It was the night of her wedding to DK, the strongest hunter in our village, that everything changed. Oh, DK, tall and broad-shouldered, with muscles like tree trunks and a voice that could command the winds, he was everything a woman would want. The entire village celebrated that night with drums, dancing, and feasting. There was joy in the air, and for a moment, the villagers seemed to forget their fears and embraced Adama. But once the guests left and the night grew quiet, something inside DK changed. His gentle touch became rough. His words, once sweet, turned cold. He pulled Adama to him and whispered, "You belong to me now." His grip tightened on her wrist until she could feel the pain. Adama's heart raced. She didn't know what had happened to him, but she could feel the shift. There was something dangerous about him, something that didn't belong in their marriage. She tried to pull away, but DK held her tight. "You are my wife," he hissed. "You will do as I say." Her throat tightened, and she felt tears burning behind her eyes. She didn't want to cry, not in front of him, not like this, but the tears came anyway. As the first tear rolled down her cheek, something strange happened. A small black snake slithered out from her tear and landed on the mat below. DK gasped in horror, stepping back. "What is this?" he gasped. Another tear followed, and then another snake appeared, this one larger, its scales shimmering in the dim candlelight. Adama's heart pounded as more tears fell, and with each drop, another snake was born, slithering out of her grief. The room quickly filled with hissing, the creatures writhing around them. DK screamed, and in his panic, he tried to escape, but the snakes were faster than he was. They coiled around his legs and sunk their fangs into his flesh. He swatted at them in terror, but more kept coming. Adama was helpless, sobbing uncontrollably, unable to stop the flood of tears. The snakes bit into him again and again, and then, with a final scream, DK collapsed. His body swelled, and his face twisted in horror. The snakes vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving only his lifeless form behind. The next morning, the villagers found DK's body. His death spread like wildfire through Obodo. The elders came to inspect his body, their faces grim. "She killed him," one villager shouted. "It was the curse. She's the one who brought death to him. Banished. She must be banished," another cried. Adama, in a daze, tried to explain. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know what happened." But the villagers would not listen. They believed she had killed him. The curse had claimed him. The elders gathered under the old Iroko tree, where they made their decision. The chief, a tall man with deep lines etched into his face, raised his staff and said, "Adama must leave. She cannot stay here. The curse is too dangerous. If she cries again, who else will die?" Adama begged them, but the decision was made. With only a bundle of food and a simple wrapper tied around her shoulders, they forced her to leave the village. She walked into the dark forest, her heart heavy, her spirit broken. And there she stayed for days, alone, surviving off what the land provided. The forest was full of strange sounds, owls hooting from the treetops, rustling bushes, the wind whispering through the leaves. Adama built a shelter from branches and leaves, keeping to herself. She learned to fish in the nearby stream, sharpened stones to make knives, and picked wild berries to eat. But though she lived, she was still lonely. She missed the sound of laughter, the warmth of family. She wondered about her mother, who had never told her about the curse, who had never warned her about the dangers of her tears. Why hadn't her mother prepared her for this? Days passed, and Adama felt as though she was drifting further from her humanity. One day, while she was washing her face by the stream, an old woman appeared. She was bent with age, her skin wrinkled like the bark of a tree, and her eyes were milky white. "I have been watching you, child," the old woman said, her voice raspy but kind. "I know your pain, and I know the curse you carry." Adama's heart froze. "You know about the curse?" The old woman nodded. "Your mother made a bargain with the river goddess, Inir. She wished for a child as beautiful as the moon, as strong as the sun. But such gifts come at a cost. Your tears carry the weight of that bargain. For each tear you shed, a snake is born." Adama's hands trembled. "But how do I stop it?" The old woman's eyes grew dark. "To break the curse, you must return to Inir. Find the place where the river glows at night. There, you will meet the goddess." Adama's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't want to face the goddess, but she had no choice. "Thank you," she whispered. The old woman smiled, but when Adama turned to ask another question, she was gone, vanishing into the mist like a dream. Adama set out the very next morning, following the river eastward. She walked for days, through thorns and over rocks, until, one evening, she found it, the glowing river. It shimmered with a strange blue light, casting eerie shadows on the trees. Adama knew this was the place. She knelt by the river and called out, "Inir, goddess of the river, I have come to seek your help." The water was still. There was no response. Adama's heart sank. Then, the water began to swirl. It rose, forming into a figure. Inir emerged, a woman made of water, her eyes glowing like the moon. She gazed at Adama, her face unreadable. "You dare to call upon me?" Inir's voice echoed through the air. Adama swallowed hard. "I want to be free of this curse. I don't want to cry anymore." Inir tilted her head, a knowing smile forming on her lips. "Your mother did not ask what price she would pay for the gift she received. I gave her what she wanted, beauty and strength. But in return, you carry this curse." Adama's heart clenched. "What can I do to break it?" Inir's eyes glowed brightly. "You must give up all sorrow. Never again will you shed a tear, not for pain, not for joy, not for love. If you do this, the snakes will cease to exist." Adama felt a weight in her chest. Could she live without sorrow? Without the emotions that made her human? But she had no choice. She took a deep breath. "I will do it." Inir raised her hand, and a bright light enveloped Adama. She felt something leave her chest, a glowing ember of sorrow that was pulled from deep within. When it left, Adama felt empty. She no longer felt sadness or joy, only an unsettling stillness. "The curse is gone," Inir said. "Go now, and never cry again." Adama walked back through the forest, the birds singing but not reaching her heart. The wind blew through the trees, but she did not shiver. She was free, but she was not whole. Years passed, and Adama returned to the village. The people, though still cautious, welcomed her back. She married again, had children, and built a life. But something was missing. Her children took their first steps, and she clapped but didn't laugh. Her husband whispered sweet words, but she didn't feel warmth in her heart. One night, an old friend came to visit. "You're here, but it's like you're not really with us," she said. "Do you not feel love? Do you not feel sadness?" Adama hesitated, then whispered, "I do not feel anything." Her friend's eyes filled with tears. Then is this truly freedom? Adama's heart stirred. She had everything, her family, her home, her life, but she had lost something far more important. She had lost the ability to feel. That night, she walked to the river and gazed into its depths. For the first time in years, a tear fell. The water rippled, and something moved beneath the surface, a great serpent, its golden eyes burning with power. Before she could scream, it wrapped around her, pulling her into the water. The next thing she knew, she was standing in a place that was neither the river nor the village. Mist surrounded her, and in front of her stood Inir, the goddess of the river. "You have broken the balance," Inir said, her voice like distant thunder. "You gave up sorrow, yet you cried." Adama's heart raced, fear filling her chest. "I didn't want to feel nothing. I didn't want to be empty." Inir studied her for a moment before speaking. "If you wish to feel again, you must take back your sorrow. But be warned, the snakes may return." Adama swallowed hard. "I want to feel again. Even if it means pain." Inir raised her hand, and the mist swirled around her. Adama felt warmth flood through her, filling the empty space in her heart. The sorrow, the joy, the love, everything came rushing back. And as a single tear fell from her cheek, she realized that this was the true gift of being human. The snakes did not return. Instead, she felt alive, truly alive, for the first time in years. When Adama returned to the village, the people knew. They could feel it. She had made peace with herself, with the curse, and with the emotions that made her whole. And so, the legend of Adama, the woman who cried out snakes, became a story of resilience, of love, and of the balance between joy and sorrow, a story passed down for generations. When the villagers stood by the river, they no longer feared the water. They whispered her name, not in fear, but in reverence. The woman who had learned to cry, who had embraced both the joy and pain of life, was no longer a curse. She was a symbol of strength, of humanity, and of the beauty in feeling it all. And when the moon shone over Obodo, the people would tell her story, of how a woman, once feared, had faced the river goddess, and through her tears, had found her way back to the fullness of life.